It's hard to say perfection is overrated, but there's also value in not always getting things exactly right. Currently, there's a trend toward maker spaces in education where students are given an objective and told to figure it out. Working on teams and innovating means there are going to be fits and starts, dead ends, and cave ins before finally success. Those failures along the way are all part of the journey. Learning that success is not permanent and failure is not fatal is all part of the process. Welcome to BexarCast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is BexarCast, a weekly interview with business, political, education, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Amy Lane is the Executive Director for NEEF and NEISD Partnerships. During her tenure as first a liaison to the foundation and now as Executive Director, NEEF has more than doubled the amount raised each year for innovative classroom grants and changed its fundraising strategy drastically. The foundation has given away more than $1 million in grants the past 5 years and raised $500,000 for its endowment fund. Amy earned her MA focused on organizational communications and digital media from Baylor University. In her spare time, she enjoys hiking, reading mysteries, trying every hole-in-the-wall restaurant in town, and traveling with her husband. Amy, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to get to talk with you. You know, I believe in what you guys do, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, the Northeast Educational Foundation is intriguing to me because it sounds like you and I are working toward the same end, like you just said. We're both in the business of trying to give students opportunities they might not otherwise have. Did I get that right? Is that so?
You're absolutely correct. And in many ways, we even fund some of the tools that allow campuses to participate in BearFest. So we are definitely working on the same team.
And BearFest, you mentioned BearFest, was founded as a way to introduce high school students to nonprofits and to show them how they can get involved in the community, how they can become valuable members of the community. Now, keep me honest here. NEEF makes grants directly to educators at Northeast ISD schools, right?
That's exactly right. And, you know, we call it NEEF for short.
Okay.
And we really believe that the fund should be in the hands of the experts who teach every day. And so we're really unique in that way. We're one of the only funders for Northeast ISD that specifically puts the funds in the hands of those experts. So teachers apply for grants and we fund them based on innovation.
Well, and how are the grants used? Are they for equipment or outings or what? How do they use the money?
It's only limited by their imagination. So we really try to fund those cutting edge tools. Right now, the latest trend is virtual and augmented reality. We do drone clubs. It can be a special tool for special education students. My favorite from the last cycle was an inflatable planetarium that's going to help elementary students understand the stars. And so really it is only limited by their imagination. Truly, we fund all sorts of just really cutting edge things. Another favorite is a book vending machine, and it was a brilliant concept because it incentivizes reading. So they get tokens based on compassion and character and things that their teachers notice, and then they get to purchase books that they get to take home. So it makes books a reward. And believe it or not, they love having their own book that they can take home. So, you know, all sorts of different things.
How do you select the recipients? Do teachers apply for these grants?
They apply for the grants, and then I have a grants committee that takes it very seriously, looks at the scope of how many students it's going to benefit, how innovative it is does it align with district priorities? And then we fund as many as we can. Last year, 310,000 worth were
Wow,
funded.
$310,000.
Grants. That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
wow, that's a lot of
And the
dollars.
year prior, you know, we were a little bit affected by COVID at the end of last year. The year prior, we funded almost 370,000.
Wow, that's massive. That's a massive impact that you're having. You mentioned the pandemic, and you mentioned that the hot topic right now is augmented learning and that sort of thing. How has what impact has the pandemic had on your operation?
Just like everyone, we've been affected. Right now, I'm in the middle of planning a virtual gala, which I never thought was something we do. But we're learning a lot of new skills, and we actually have never funded families and actual emergency needs. And for the first time this year, we went to our board and we said there are some families that are hurting within Northeast, and they need our support. So we had a COVID-19 relief fund to help buy groceries for those parents that had lost their jobs. And so that was definitely new for us. And the virtual gala is new for us. So just like everyone, we've been impacted, but we have been blessed that our donors are giving, and there are folks out there that still have the ability to give, and our parents have been supportive of our cause.
And that goes to the culture of the community. That yeah, everybody's hurting, but we're all hurting together. We're all in this together, and we're gonna work together to come up with a solution. I love that.
Exactly right.
Yeah, speaking of compassion and passion, where did your passion for education come from? How did you get started?
I think about this a lot. Well, number one, my grandmother was a math teacher in a rural Texas town. And I, I went to a few of her reunions, and even at her funeral, she had students
Oh,
that she taught 40, 50 years ago come and just talk about what an impact she made on their life. Even people who hated math would just talk about how she impacted them. And so I truly have a heart for teachers. And then specifically in what I do in terms of innovative grants, I remember there was a special teacher that I had, and her name was Frau Roddy, and that is German. So she was a German teacher. And no, I do not use German in my day-to-day life, but she really made the program just so special. She would come early in the morning to teach folk dancing, and I was in the folk dancing team. And then in October, we would have Oktoberfest with root beer chugging contests, and she just made it special. And so I know firsthand that those extras that aren't part of the curriculum make a difference in your life. They make you want to be at school. They are the memories that you have 20 years later. And so we know that innovative grants make a difference. And no, it's not things that the TEA is demanding that the district fund, but we know that they have their own purpose and that they are beneficial to students' learning and their
absolutely,
lives.
absolutely, and beneficial to students' learning and their lives. Looking beyond school, beyond high school, college, when you're in the workforce. Workforce development is one of the big elements of BexarCast, and we're coming at that from a couple of different directions. Students are getting some education on how media production works. They're actually building a team and creating a production on behalf of their nonprofit, but they're also spending months engaged with that nonprofit and the leadership and the staff. So they're also getting the experience of what it's like to work in the nonprofit sector in the community service field. As a nonprofit leader, when you look at the next generation of nonprofit donors and volunteers and even employees, how valuable are the lessons that these students are learning in BexarCast, the interaction in a nonprofit?
You really can't put a price on it. I mean, it is absolutely learning how to work on a team. I'm sure, Randy, you know that that is the best skill that you can learn. And so learning how to do it in a productive way, learning how to get through conflicts, because there are definitely going to be conflicts in the work environment, how to do that in a professional way and still get the job done and have a successful product at the end of the day. That's probably the best skill you can give the future workforce.
And what about job skills, hard job skills? Most of the students who participate in BexarCast, we know they're probably not going to go into the media or work at nonprofits, but they are learning, like you say, resource allocation, collaboration, critical thinking, that they're going to use no matter what field they end up in. And you're in a unique position in that you're involved in both education and community service. So, and you mentioned very timely, you mentioned a teacher that impacted you with out of the box thinking, out of the classroom learning. Um, how does that translate to inside the classroom learning? Will those skills that they're learning through this process make them better students? Will they be more successful in college?
We've actually been able to prove that. We track our grants and we make sure that they are making an impact in the classroom. Part of that, learning has changed since you and I were in school. We really are finding that students need to learn how to fail. And so a lot of the projects that we fund do just that. They're called makerspace grants, and it teaches them how to work on a team. And that sometimes to innovate, you have to mess up and you can't be perfect all the time. And so absolutely that translates. And I think in terms of skills, we're learning that soft skills are what many of our students need more than the hard skills. So technology is going to change by the time they get their first job. But having those soft skills, being able to communicate, look people in the eye, being able to work well together, that's what's really going to set them apart in the workforce when they join it.
You're leading right into what I'm interested in talking about. One of the reasons we pair high school students with nonprofits is one, the nonprofits need the assets. They need what the students are producing. Most of them don't have the resources to create it on their own. And again, in your nonprofit leadership role, how important are those assets and how difficult are they to come by? You've been there.
Um, they're almost impossible for most nonprofits to come by. You don't have the time, you don't have the resources, you are just in a fundraising cycle that never stops. And usually with maybe a one-person team for
Right?
many of these nonprofits. So no, they don't have the ability to build these videos. So what you're doing is incredibly important. You're the hero for many nonprofits because they don't have a media production team, and telling their story is how they're going to raise funds. So without those videos, it's almost impossible in today's environment to raise funds.
It really is. That's what one of the key reasons BearFest was created was because I was volunteering at nonprofits making these kind of videos and realized this is way bigger than one guy can do. There's a real serious need in the community for this, and that's how BearFest came to be. Another
We are so
reason.
thankful for that. Let me just speak for nonprofits everywhere that you found a real need and you're filling it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, another reason that we put students inside nonprofits, other than the nonprofits need the help, is because most students, this was kind of surprising to me, think everyone that works at a nonprofit is a volunteer. They don't realize there are careers here. You can pay your bills and have a passion for community service. How important is it to make students aware of not only public service career options, but just what's out there in the marketplace? I know when I was in high school, I kind of locked in on journalism. I wanted to be a journalist, and I kind of put on blinders after that. How important is it to make students aware of you got some options here?
Oh, I think it's so important. They're probably going to switch jobs 7 to 10 times within their career. So it's always important to know what's out there. And it's important not only for the students, but for the community as a whole to know that you should invest in your nonprofits, that they should be treated no differently than a CEO of another company. They are providing a service and they do help our economy run. So I think it's important for everyone to understand that it is a legitimate career path. And
Yeah.
you want the best, most qualified people in those roles. And so that does mean you need to pay them correctly.
Yeah, don't get me started on the starvation cycle
That's right.
in nonprofits, because I can go on and on and on about that.
But obviously, we all do it because we want to
Yeah,
believe in what we do at the end
right.
of the day. So that I think a lot of students will figure that out too, that maybe they want to work for a nonprofit because it does align with their passion, and that you can feel really good about yourself every day when you go home from work.
I'm glad you raised that corporate culture element, that issue. When we embed these students with these nonprofit organizations, they're in that culture for a considerable period of time. They work on these productions for months, and they hear adults talking about their commitment to a cause, and they see compassionate behavior. And I'm a firm believer that every adult is a role model. kids are watching, whether you want them to or not. They're going to watch what you do and they're going to emulate that. And so they see that compassionate behavior and it rubs off. And so they pick up, this is my expectation. I've been immersed in this culture, so this is my expectation of what work is supposed to be like. And it seems like that might cut two ways. It makes the students more passionate about what they're doing, but it could also make them hold their employers to a higher standard. If you're not living up to my expectations, see you around. Does that prepare them for the real world, for the world of college and the world of the workforce?
I believe that it does. And we have actually seen that. It's perfect that you said that, Randy. Millennials, 84% of millennials give to charities on a regular basis. They have less money to spend, really, but compared to baby boomers who give around 70%. And so we expect the same from Gen Z, the next generation coming up, that's just become really important to our young people. And they are looking at that when they go to work for a company. They're asking, what is their value and what do they support and what do they believe in? And so that is important to our young people today. And I think that it's important for them to be exposed to that at a young age.
And it's always good to hold the boss accountable.
So I
Yeah.
think so. I think we're ready for it. I appreciate that when new ideas and ways of thinking come across my desk. So
Right.
I think it's important for leaders, young and old, to be ready for that when this generation comes into the workforce.
Absolutely. Well, Amy, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you too long, but I appreciate your insights. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what SAEP does. Oh my God, or what NEF does. I so appreciate what you guys do for the students and for the faculty and for the community and for the society as a whole. You're doing the Lord's work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Randy. I have enjoyed this, and thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to when we can get together face to face.
Oh, me too. Me too.
When the world starts turning again.